Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Mad Moments podcast. My name is Sim. Along with me is my co-host Shaykh Amir and SIM. It is with a heavy heart that we talk to you this evening, and it's something that we just didn't want to talk about, and words can't explain the grief, the sorrow we've all felt over the past 24 hours. I think I had just found out last night, right after the podcast we just did with Hazel and Sheikh Yusuf Rios, and I was kind of distracted on my towards the end of the podcast because my phone was blowing up, and I was kind of rushing to wrap it up, and I didn't know what to make of the news. I didn't know if it was verified. Text messages after text messages were coming in saying that something really horrible happened in New Zealand, in a place of all names called ChristChurch. And I'm not here to tell anyone like how they display their grief. For me, when it kind of set in that this happened, I was like, I can't deal with it, and I just, Sheikh Amir, don't laugh. I went and just started playing video games because I need to get my mind off of it.
Yeah,
I couldn't deal with it.
you needed some type of outlet to distract yourself.
And I just started playing Call of Duty. I need to get some anger out. I need to get some frustration out. I was just really, like when you get punched right in the gut and you don't know how to react, and you don't want to be overcome with the emotions, and you don't want to. You're not sure if you want to cry or not, and it's like so soon that I don't think you couldn't even cry, and you're just like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
But yeah, my heartfelt sympathies to all the victims in New Zealand. Just so much dua for you guys. Since that event happened last night.
Allah heal the hearts of the victims' families, and that place is never going to be the same, right? People are,
it's not, and I just want to tell the listeners as they start coming in, we have to frame things the right way when this kind of stuff happens, and we have to. Yes, the emotions are just rolling in and things like that, but you have to put things into perspective, and you have to figure out that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent these things your way, and ultimately, yes, it was this six son of a bitches actions that caused this, but this is by the will of Allah. This all good and bad happens by His permission, and that doesn't take away any of His guilt or anything, but trials and tests happen to us, and they happen for a reason. They're meant to be teachers.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to figure out today. And so I talked about going online or starting to play video games and not wanting to even think about it because I didn't want to be overcome with it. And I was seeing like text messages of people who are sharing links to the video and stuff, and I'm not going to shame you if you saw the video or whatever, but for me it's just too much. I can't handle that. I've seen Syrian war videos, and that's, I think this is different from other types of struggles that the Muslims have experienced all over the world, whether it's Xinjiang, China, Syria, and so on.
It's a very different breed. You're not saying it's worse or anything like that.
No,
it's a completely different breed.
It hits home because we all go to Jummah.
Yeah.
We all have family who go to Jummah.
Yeah.
That could very well be our families.
Yeah.
Right there, because we all live among non-Muslims.
Yeah.
Especially in the West. I think more people, it hit us more than anyone in the world because of how vulnerable we all feel on a deeper level. In a general level, on an everyday in an everyday sense, everyone feels comfortable and has a relative amount of safety that, I'm not saying that, we're operating or living in fear in America. That's not truth. I think of course, there are some impoverished areas and areas where there's a lot of violence and things. Of course, those places do live in fear. But in a general sense, most Muslims, they're upper class,
there's a small percentage,
upper middle class people, and they live in a relative amount of safety, and they don't feel like their lives are threatened. And when this kind of thing happens, it just hits right home more than any other tragedy that has happened over the past 10 years.
Yeah, and the thing is that because Jummah is such a peaceful, quiet. Yeah, there's a little bit of a rush there, but as far as people and a crowd, but no one would ever expect when everybody's so defenseless that some coward would just open fire and children getting shot, and people just go there just to worship Allah. Like even in places of worship, Rasulullah and Allah is very clear. Even if there happens to be a case of war, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi even said this, when the Muslims were defeating the Crusaders, that people who are in place of worship, don't even touch them, even in a time of war. Leave them alone, let them stay in their places and worship, and don't, disturb them at all. So it's a common understanding. We don't attack journalists, with the exception of Israel, they do, but and maybe some other countries, but we don't attack messengers, we don't attack journalists, we don't attack people ever in the places of worship, even at the time of war, if it's necessary, if war was necessary. So that it's just, we all go to Jummah, like you said, and we don't expect something like that to happen.
Yeah,
it's very cowardice.
You're in every masjid, or for the most part, at least from what I know, it's all, your back is to the wall.
Yeah.
You have no defense.
Yeah.
And you're in a state of spirituality where you're not thinking about your safety.
Yeah.
And the cowardly move that this man made was that, it wasn't just that, he attacked women and children, and that he was someone who just went after defenseless people who had their backs turned him in the most defenseless posture, where they're making sujood and they're making salah in the most harmless position.
Humbling, humility, nothingness. And it's a state of nothingness, because that's what salah is, right? Especially in sujood. So with me, when, I'm a little different, and sometimes I think people don't understand me when I say this, and they think that I'm being cold-hearted, but for me, when I hear news like this, of course it affects me, but I'm not surprised. Right? Because Rasulullah mentioned at the end of times, Islam's going to be like holding on to hot coal. And if you really, really love Rasulullah and you see his life, that holding on to Islam will eventually bring some type of test. And everything that's happening around the world, happening in the world around us, we know that this is a test from Allah, and we're completely okay. We're Allah's property. He can test us however he wants. Yeah. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's his business. We just have to be patient. That's it, right? So for me, but what happened to me was when I read that news last night, and after I woke up for Fajr, I was just reading the reports of a second mosque, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, should I be very surprised? Like, I was feeling guilty to myself. Yeah. Right? And I'll tell you why this is a little different than other cases, like you mentioned Syria. But anyways, I was thinking to myself, I was like, do I have a dead heart? Am I supposed to be very surprised? I started questioning myself. So the interesting thing was this morning when I was getting ready to go to work, and my kids, they go to work with me. I work at a school, and the kids go to school, the same school I teach at. The missus, she was saying, what, just, I don't want to tell the kids about this, and, they're sensitive, and, so don't mention anything. So we stopped talking about it. My kids came down to get ready for school. But my daughter overheard. I didn't know my daughter overheard what we were talking about. Yeah. So we get into the car. I put on, my daughter said, Abu, can you put on the Quran? I was like, of course, So put on the Quran, listening, and I'm still thinking about this. And when I'm pulling into the parking lot, my daughter, she says to me, Abu, what were you and Mama talking about extra security is going to be there, extra guards are going to be there, and we have to be very safe and keep your doors locked. And because it's a school, you have to be prepared for a lockdown now. You have to think of that mindset, especially as a teacher. So I just said straightforward, I was like, you know what? In New Zealand, Muslims were praying Jummah, and somebody opened fire at them. it was a hate crime, and 49 about Muslims died, and there were much more people that. So for me, I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to explain this to my kids. My daughter, she's a little emotional, rightfully so. So she's like, well, Abu, if you think about it, now this is where I don't realize Allah's help is going to come from this way, and how our children, Allah can use them to increase our iman. And she says, well, Abu, they were praying Jummah, right? I was like, yeah. It's like, so isn't that, I mean, it's not okay, but aren't they like in a good place now? And right then, the hadith of Rasulullah says, whoever passes away on Jummah, that they get the death, or I think there's two different understandings, the death of a shaheed, or all their sins are wiped away. Yeah. And they get into Jannah without any hisab. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Give me 5, she's sitting behind me. And then my son, he wants to say something. When he says something, he gets really excited. He's like, oh, Abu, but he's getting his bag and everything. He says, Abu, you know what? I said, what? He's like, you know what I just thought about? I was like, what do you think about? And I'm walking into school, and he says, those people that got shot, they didn't run away in Jummah. They stayed there. I said, yeah, you're right. He says, that means Allah's happy with them. I was like, oh, dude, it literally brought tears to my eyes. I'm going into school. I'm like trying to hold in my tears. I'm all choked up. I'm like, my kids just raised my iman, right?
That's amazing.
And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's work, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it. And here I was feeling guilty the whole time. And I was like, they're shuhada, man, right?
Yeah.
And we don't wish any calamity on anybody, but Allah compensates when there's a calamity.
Yeah.
There's one thing that we talk about is why would Allah put them in that situation? Those things occur in people's minds, but we have to talk about the compensation too.
Yeah.
Right? They say, the understanding is that Jannah is paved, the path to Jannah is paved in thorns, right?
Yeah.
So my children empowered me, and I was like, you know what? I'm actually glad that I wasn't surprised. I believe what Rasulullah is going to be says what he says is true, what Allah says is true. What happens at the end of time? One of the signs of the end of time is that the killer won't know why he's killing, and the killed don't know why they're being killed.
SubhanAllah, right there, man.
One of the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? So we shouldn't be surprised. Of course, we should feel grief. We should feel some type of directed anger, right? Yes. Not an emotional, reckless anger. But that anger should direct us into a certain direction. That anger should increase our iman, right?
Right. And this is what you're hitting my next point. The 7 stages of grief. I think it was a psychologist, Kubler-Ross, who came up with this. And the first is, shock, which is something that we all go through. I felt that, I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to understand what was happening. And I went to, the denial phase. And I think, by me playing video games and stuff, I kind of, vented through that, kind of got angry. You
could have done drugs, but you didn't.
No, I didn't. Alhamdulillah. And then there's depression, and then there's testing and acceptance. But what's also similar about the Kubler-Ross model is that these things are also common things that Iblis also felt when he was told about not being the chosen, not being the best of all creation. This model can turn you into two different. It can send you into two different directions.
I see what you're saying now.
So because if you think, we know about the shock that Iblis went through, and the denial that he denied Adam alayhi salam being better than him, and then the anger towards him that he promised that he would dissuade or send the children of Adam in the wrong direction, and then he bargained with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a sense, right? Are we onto something, or?
No, I never thought about it that way. It's amazing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you guys all knew this stuff.
No, I don't know anything, bro.
Anyway,
I'm learning from you, son.
So I kind of thought about grief in the sense of this model that Dr. Kubler-Ross made in the early 60s or something. And then we know in the last part of this model, with Iblis, he goes to hell, right? This is his depression, and he is in forever loss, you know, and it's important that we contextualize, or at least we understand how to understand these phases of grief in an Islamic way, so that we have a better approach to handling whatever test comes in our life.
Yeah.
Whether it's, the loss of mass killings through actors in the world, whether it's the Chinese oppressing the Uyghurs, or Bashar al-Assad oppressing the Syrians.
And at the time of the shooting, Israel started launching an attack on Palestinians.
Yes, they fired a couple rockets, they claimed that Hamas fired a couple rockets.
Probably end up being firecrackers, which happened before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they use that as a pretext because they know whenever the world's not paying attention, they start firing rockets at the Palestinians. So this is we're in a pathetic situation all across the world, and we're getting our butts handed to us on every level.
Yeah.
Our levels of our spirituality is being eroded through our consumption of media, food, everything. Every instinct of our self is being exploited through the world. And then on a social level, our families are falling apart.
Yeah.
Divorce is rampant. Communities aren't being communities, as Shaykh Rios was talking about. The downfall of the community. There is no more community anymore. People don't even know each other's neighbors.
Yeah.
And then on a political level, where we have no protection, no Islamic actor protecting us from.
There's no shield for the believers.
There's no political actor who is vested in the interests of Muslims.
Yeah.
And this is something that needs to be addressed, because I'm not saying anything about your participation in the political world, in whatever level, whether you're voting or not, but we're getting our butts handed to us because people think about themselves first. Countries, whether it's Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, everyone thinks about themselves first. Why can't Turkey get involved in Burma? Why not?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't serve their interests. Because they whatever. I'm not going to get into all the political aspects of this. I'm just saying there isn't anyone who is guarding the interests of Muslims.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're being affected in a multi faceted level. So.
No, I'm glad you broke it down that way, and I think we come back to that. But out of respect for the Muslims who passed away, and for information for those people who are confused, an environment creates certain personalities, right? We're all products of our environment.
Yeah.
We had politicians and community leaders that created this environment of causing friction and hostility amongst each other.
Right.
We started otherizing. And I don't want to say we, alhamdulillah, I wasn't a part of that, but community leaders. And we even see that on a level of two parties. You have Democrats and you have Republicans. And they're fighting over who can cause most hostility amongst people. And that became an international, there was a ripple effect internationally. And everyone believes that they're either on this side or the other side. And human beings shouldn't have to live like that.
Yeah.
And that's what creates this hostility. There's a brainwashing that occurs. This person started saying, the shooter, and we've heard this before, that they think they're going to take over our lands. Well, we're going to set a precedent, and we're going to this. He even had it in his manifesto, Q&A, and talking about everything he's doing, and, Turks, and talking about. So there's this whole concept of now politicians. It becomes very difficult for Muslims to look at politicians sometimes. People wonder why Muslims are reacting emotionally. Well, number one, everyone has a right to react emotionally.
Yeah.
Is what you do with that emotion. But there's this, you're between a rock and a hard spot, and this fuel continues to, this fire continues to be fueled by the otherizing of other people, and all of a sudden you have this person who thinks he's a vigilante, and the government's not doing enough, so he has to take matters into his own hand. And I think we'd be pretentious, and I don't want to sound alarming, but if we think that this is just an offshoot issue, and it only, it was a farce, and whatever, and it's not going to happen again, I think we're very, very naive if we think that. Somebody has set the precedent before, but this guy solidified it, and people feel. And look what that senator. Do you know the senator that made that statement from Queensland, New Zealand? is he like a legit? And number one, is that statement real of what he said, or is it like somebody that made something up?
So you're talking about
Yeah, I have it right here.
This guy here, Senator Fraser Hand.
Yeah.
So he's someone who has been putting out all kinds of hate-filled messages.
Yeah.
Creating fear.
But is he like
about immigration?
Is this
Muslims.
legit, Senator? Is this real? I mean, the stuff that he said was crazy. He's trying to condemn, and all after the condemnation, then he starts going off on this rant about Muslims and Islam, and
I don't know.
it does like, to me. If again, I'm not surprised, but it doesn't seem like something that a senator would say when he's condemning something.
Well, he doesn't have a check mark on it, so I'm not sure. I mean, he looks like he's got a little bit of a following. Maybe I'm not sure if it's a troll account or whatever, but it seems like, I don't know what to make of it when
Official statement of the senator's office. I don't know. It just didn't seem like this was really from a senator. I don't know.
Look at this stuff. Australians are facing dangerous African gangs and Muslim terrorists more and more frequently. We need castle doctrine and the right to bear arms so law-abiding citizens can defend themselves against these murderous criminals.
That doesn't sound like something a senator would say.
Yeah, I mean, well, who knows? Who knows what the situation is like in New Zealand? No one.
Yeah, if someone from New Zealand could chime into us and let us know if this is actually. I tried looking up and verifying it online. I couldn't find anything that was saying that this was a false statement.
Yeah.
Nobody was saying that no, this is false. It's from a fake account. So if anyone's from New Zealand and can. It says Senator Fraser Hand on the top, Senator of Queensland, date
so
15th
our
of March,
listeners,
2019.
Our listeners, Mermies and Noreen and them, they're all saying that it's verified. It's on his official website. So there you have it. The crack team at the Mad Mamluks has verified that he is real, and this is not a troll account. I don't understand how people who purport freedom and liberty can allow such a man be in power, and that's what's really surprising to me, at least from some of the statements he makes. And I don't want to digress too much on this Senator Fraser Hand, but this is maybe one of those action items we could take away from the night, that maybe you can go on Twitter and go on this psychopath's account and report him to Twitter, but there's much more reflection, and the reason why I was talking about the three various phases, that the personal or spiritual phase, and then there's a social phase, and then there's the political phase, right? But whenever tragedies like this happen, I just think about what I'm doing. I don't think about what who's putting out what statement. What statement is Umar Suleiman putting out, or Suhaib Webb, or Yasser Qadi? I don't look at anyone, man. I'm just thinking about what are you doing, Sim?
Yeah.
What are you doing for the state of the world? Because clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to learn from this situation.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm like, am I participating in somehow in this horrible situation that the Muslims are in? On every level, on my own personal level, am I doing my salah on time? Am I bringing myself closer to my Creator? Am I, am I developing my spirituality? Am I spending too much time on one thing and not enough time on another? And this is that type of day where you reflect on what you could be doing better.
Yeah.
So that the overall situation of the ummah gets better.
Yeah.
And you evaluate yourself on each phase. What's your relationship with your masjid on a social level?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can do to bring those people back.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, there's absolutely nothing you can do. Sure, you can. Are you going to just give some money and call it a day? I mean, there's plenty of launch good fundraisers out there. I shared some on my Facebook link.
Yeah.
But is that it? I mean, people will eventually do things that will make them feel at ease in their heart.
Yeah.
Now, the correct thing I would suggest is that do the right thing so that eventually when this pain fades away, you've at least benefited from it in a positive way by doing really productive things. And I'm not, I'm not taking away from you donating to the victims and things like that. That's
what you're saying. It shouldn't stop over there.
It shouldn't. There's many other contributing factors to us, to Muslims suffering around the world.
Yeah.
And you can't just look at it just in the scope of New Zealand. We have to look at it, in the larger picture, and we have to see, hang on a second, just step back and say, like, why is this happening just all at once? We just dealt with, all the horrible atrocities in Syria. We spent so many tears on that, cried nights away, seeing just anguish and suffering over and over again. And at some point we have to figure out, like, hey, what can I be doing better so that my relationship with the Creator and the world improves, and so that society can benefit from me.
Yeah.
It's not just me benefiting from society.
Yeah.
What can, I don't want to do a Kennedy here, what can my country do for you, or, whatever.
Yeah.
What can my masjid do for whatever.
I think putting things into perspective, the situation, it just made me really sad. Like, I have to tell my students about this. And the situation is as such that people, like, for instance, we heard people saying that we don't want to go to the masjid. Should we not go to the masjids? Should we not go to school? There's some parents that didn't want to send their children to school. Yeah. Didn't want to send them. And the reason why it was difficult for me to see extra security, and a part of me said that, hey, man, we don't need extra security. And I'll tell you why I said that. Another part is like, man, it's good we have extra. It's like a type of thing that you're torn between. Yeah. I don't want to have extra security. My mind is just, talking to me and myself, is that I don't want the culprit and this criminal and this terrorist to feel that he got the best of us. And because of him, we're taking precautionary measures. He's not worth that. And the other part is, okay, well, we have children to look after, right? Both, look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have security, but this is an internal wrestling match that occurs, that when you don't want to give somebody a platform, you don't want to empower them, but they did succeed by instilling fear into everybody. Yeah. The whole, like, any action that somebody takes, the whole world is affected by it. We're a global community, right? Yeah. And information travels so fast that everyone's taking precautionary measures. The administration comes to me like, can you go 2 minutes to every class? It doesn't matter what they're doing as long as they're not taking tests, but make your rounds all day and give a 2-minute talk to all the classes. So I try to do that to the best of my ability. But every single time I was giving those talks, I felt like, man, I'm raising more awareness about this dude, but I still have to do it. Indirectly, I'm raising awareness about him and I'm giving him publicity. I don't like to do that, but it's sometimes you have to do it. And within that I felt this is my test, and I still have to stay strong because I have to help protect people, right? Yeah. So that's one element of it. And then people saying that at a level of iman, they're saying that, no, we shouldn't go to the masjid. Let's not go to the masjid for Jummah today, because because there was, like, in the neighboring areas, especially Lombard, there were some people posting white supremacist propaganda. The village of Lombard talked about it. In your
town, okay.
Close to my town, neighboring town, yeah. Basically the town that I grew up in,
So people were spreading hate literature on what, like street posts?
Yeah, street posts, just like if somebody, like, loses their little pet, and they, same way, like, I haven't seen it. Nobody took pictures of it. I don't think the village of Lombard wanted people to see it because it'd be alarming. So they had actually a task force that went and removed all that.
Do you know, like, what stretch? Was it over a mile? How many flyers?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was trying to find, but I heard it was downtown Lombard.
I'm just trying to figure out how much manpower was used. Sometimes, if it was one guy. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could be just a few blocks.
But even if it's one guy, he still did his job of having people on their toes, right?
Definitely.
So now, what level? This is where our test of iman comes. Like I told the missus this morning, I said, we're going to go to school. We're going to go to the masjid. Nothing's changed. Yeah. We should take extra precautionary measures and security, right? But nothing's changed. We're going to do what we have to do. We're going to worship Allah because this is Allah testing us, right? Yeah. And we don't want to fall into that weakness, that we're going to stop our duties towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of some lunatic that kills Muslims, you know. But the flip side is also we should understand that, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very, very clearly in the Quran talks about those individuals, especially in the state of ibadah, for their deen, right? The Imam in our masjid that was leading the prayer, he was reading Surah Al-Buruj, right? وَمَا نَقَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. And he was talking about the people, Ashab al-Ukhdud, right? And the people that were burned and thrown into fire by the king, and they were only tested because they believed in Allah, right? They knew that themselves, that the king. And when he read that, it hit home so, like, these people are really, like, we could confidently say that Allah had chosen those people as shuhada, right? And when this person does this action, he thinks that he's defeated us and he's instilled fear in the believers. He didn't instill fear in us. And if we feel fear, we shouldn't. In Surah Ali Imran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, is referring to the backdrop of the surah, and you could chime in anytime, I don't want to ramble on for too long. The hypocrites, they came to the Muslims, because they were amongst the Muslims, and started saying, hey man, they're preparing a big force and a big army against you. So just be very cautious and be afraid of them. They're a big force. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with his wisdom, chose to reveal a verse in reference to what they say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ. That the people have gathered against you and they're ready to, basically what it means is they're a force that's to be reckoned with and they're going to attack you. So fear them, right? But what happened to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا. Rather, they were increased in their iman by hearing this news from the hypocrites, right? And their saying was, وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَ اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. That Allah is enough for us. Meaning whatever force you have, that doesn't matter. Allah is enough for us. وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. And He is the caretaker of our matters, or our affairs, the disposer of our affairs. So the reaction is, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. The reason why I'm mentioning all this is this person, all he did was increase our iman.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything else. He thinks that he killed those Muslims. He made them all shuhada.
Yeah.
Right? Rasulullah, I mean, look at all of the Sahaba that wish they were shuhada, but they couldn't be shuhada. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses the shuhada, right?
Yeah.
And Rasulullah, so many hadith. But let's just count. Rasulullah says, the shaheed, number one, before a drop falls onto the ground of their blood, all their sins are forgiven. Their soul is in Jannah before their body touches the ground and collapses. They're not dealing with the questioning of the grave. There's no agony and no fear and anxiety of Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? There's the narration that refers to that they are within green birds in Jannah that fly around, and they're basically settled on lanterns which hang off the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? The throne of Allah. So even shahada, what they attained, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses those people very, very specific. Look at Khalid ibn al-Walid on his deathbed, wishing that he was a martyr. He said, I've been through 80 battles, and my wish was that I was a martyr, and I couldn't get martyrdom, right? So people always strived and understood the only thing between them and Allah is death, right? Rasulullah in a hadith says that at the end of time, you know, we all know the hadith where we're going to be like a big plate and people are eating off of it, and you're going to be like the foam or froth on the ocean. That's how weak you're going to be pushed around. And people asked, are we going to be less in number, Ya Rasulullah? No, you're going to be great in number. We're 1.7 billion. We boast about it a lot. Right?
Almost a quarter of the world's population. Yeah,
we boast about it a lot, rightfully so, that we say that Allah's deen has spread so far. But He says that your love of the dunya, what's gonna afflict you, and the plague of yourselves is going to be love of the dunya and the fear of death.
Yes.
Which means that Islam is encouraging us, if we have a relationship with Allah, which is an obligation upon us. You've been talking about, right? My relationship with my Creator. That's the journey, right?
But when you say dunya, that there's more. I mean, dunya means not just like riches and stuff.
No.
It's the satisfaction of all of our desires.
Attaining satisfaction.
To the maximum.
Yep. Instant gratification. No worry.
Like
nothing.
We're not happy with McDonald's anymore. We want the best top shelf restaurants that, with the fall off the bones meat and like the perfection of cooks that kings of thousands of years ago would be difficult for them to get those kind of recipes.
And people constantly competing, like you're talking about meat and stuff like that. I heard people yesterday just talking about people that, mashallah, I respect a lot, but they were comparing what steakhouse they've been to, in which they're like trying to one up each other indirectly. I know it's something small, and we do that with a lot of things. I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it. I think we're all guilty. But the main point I'm trying to draw here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is letting us know, Rasulullah is letting us know that once you start fearing death and have this attachment to this world that you don't want to let go, you're holding on to it with talons and with your fangs, and you think that, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I can in this world, and this is my Jannah. That's the dilemma, right? So, and there's nothing wrong with having, liquid assets and wealth, and, just like one scholar said to me, just take it out of your heart and put it in your pocket if you have that much money. That's it, right? It's a very simple statement, but I think it's profound. But coming back to the shuhada, many people had yearned to be in this situation, and they've attained it. All of the martyrs in New Zealand, all of the martyrs of Syria, all of the martyrs of Burma, and our Chinese brothers that are very, there's not too much awareness in what's really happening, but they're going through some gruesome time, and that's an understatement. Muslims in Palestine, over 50 years of occupations, and getting kicked out of their home and killed and murdered in cold blood, children. All of this, we understand it's gruesome and we want it to stop, but still, those who are dying with that price, alhamdulillah, they're shuhada. And the reason I'm mentioning this is, if you think that you're going to scare us, you're not scaring, you're just raising our iman. And if you're going to help us become shuhada, we're not afraid of that either. So we won both ways.
Yeah.
We won because we're shuhada, and if this hatred stops, then we still won.
Yeah.
Right? There's no defeating us. So believers, those of you guys who are listening to us, number one, just to wrap up what you said, we're not ending the podcast, but to summarize, not only do we serve human beings, serve Muslims, but we serve human beings.
Yeah.
In that process, while we're serving humanity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you be the one. I want to be the one that Allah chooses to make a difference. I want to be the chosen one.
Right.
I'm not going to wait for a chosen one to come and make a change. Right? I want to be that chosen one. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it comes with a price, but may Allah give us all the death of shuhada. Right. Right? May Allah, because that's the death.
How often do we hear people say, oh, things aren't going to get better until Imam Mahdi comes?
Yeah.
Well, he'll sort everything out. No, Imam Mahdi is not going to come until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feels that you are ready to welcome him. How many people would even accept Imam Mahdi today?
Yeah.
They'd be like, he thinks he's the Mahdi, and laugh him off. Like, maybe perhaps.
Because he will be a test of people's iman.
Yeah.
He will be a litmus test for people's iman. So no one's going to scare us. Brothers and sisters, no one's going to scare us. They're only increasing our iman. Don't spread fear. Be cautious. Take precautionary measures. Don't be naive either. We shouldn't also paint this picture that the whole world is over and everyone's out to get us. You're in the line at Target or something, whatever, and you see someone looking at you, oh my God, he's out to get me. No, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
That's what people want you to feel, but they're not going to bully you. Don't let anybody bully you. I'm not going to let anyone bully me. I'm not going to let them bully my children in that way. No one in my family. And all I'm going to say is, and that's my message generally for today, is it's just going to increase us in our iman. That's it.
But as Muslims, how do we engage with non-Muslims in raising awareness? Because I've seen various messages online and whatever. People are saying that we need to call it for what it is. Well, this is white extremism, and this is a product of essentially white hate. And what troubles me about it, yes, of course, he's a nationalist. He's a white supremacist in every way. No one's denying that. But the phrasing of that language can also be used. It's the same logic that was used against Muslims.
Yeah.
That this is what the right was saying. The far right was saying, we need to call these atrocities that are committed by ISIS as it is. We got to call it Islamic extremism. This is one of Trump's main rallying points during his presidential rallies, that he would keep on repeating this thing that we need to call it for what it is, Islamic extremism. And now, here's the problem I have with that, is that if we follow that same logic and you guys use that same logic against us, well, we're going to use it against you. I don't think that solves anything.
It's not going to solve anything.
What I was suggesting is that maybe we engage with the world, not on a racial level, but as Muslims, we tell the world that, you know, of extremism of any kind, whether it's far left, far right, anarchist, communist, whatever it is, you know, we say, you know, this is everyone in their community has to do their part.
Yeah.
To end this.
Yeah, and people should get disheartened. Like, and I don't want to sound, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm being negative at all, but before we start any mission, we can't think that we're going to change everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think, oh, I'm just going to talk to this one person's opportunity. I'm going to convince them, oh my God, it's over. No, you have to keep at it, man. Rasulullah had to keep at it. And every single, any idea that you have that people don't like or have a misunderstanding of, i.e. Islam, you're not going to convince everybody. And you're not meant to convince everybody.
You know what happened to me this morning? I came into work and sat down and you know, just went to work and tried to keep my mind off the news and everything. And just random coworkers just started coming by saying, you know, hey, I heard about what happened to your community in New Zealand, and, you know, our heartfelt sympathies and just so many condolences. And
even in the masjid too, yeah, today.
These are non-Muslim people who, you know, of all races, whether they're white and other ethnicities, they're all, like, you know, expressing solidarity. There was a pastor at our mosque who came from the next door neighbor, next door
church. Yeah.
Church. He came over and he just he was there, like, expressing his support, his sympathy. Just, you know, the whole the way identity politics is taking over in shaping the way we think about things is feeding into the problem.
Yeah.
Because a lot of white people, at least that I know of, they have no idea who these people are. They're like, who are these people? They don't, like, when you tell them, like, hey, we need you to condemn these people, they're like, wait, I don't have anything to do with that. Yeah. Like, what are you looking at me for? Like, I didn't do anything. I you know, I'm friendly with everyone.
Yeah.
And then after a while, it starts, like, creating a barrier, you know, and then it creates a division that, oh, this is us versus them.
Yeah.
You know, or there's, and at least with some stupid people like this killer, it starts feeding into, maybe some things go wrong in their life, and they start fitting the puzzles in. You remember the Alex Jones type puzzles that they have, like, a canvas on how they perceive why their life is the way that it is, and then they start putting together these pieces of the puzzle, even though they don't completely fit together. You ever play one of these the jigsaw puzzles? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can make something coherent out of the arrangement of these puzzles, even though they don't completely fit together right. And that's what a lot of these guys do. They have this canvas of why the world is the way it is, and in this case it was Muslims who are trying to take over the white man's land, and he fit together anything that fit with his narrative on what he's making on his board.
Yeah.
And he's creating a worldview out of that.
Yeah.
And that's what essentially every person who falls into this whole Alex Jones type mentality is, that these are people who are uneducated. I have this guy's thing right here. Let me put it up here. This guy is so silly. Where is he? Where is
Can I look at the comments while you're
Yeah.
doing that? if you don't mind.
Okay, here it is.
Salam Mort. Wow, mashallah. See a lot of Mort. Miss you, bro. Wish you were on this convo, but I guess they didn't want you to be here. Just joking. Love you, brother.
All right, so
Boys in the Cave in the comments. Shout out to Boys in the Cave.
so he's explaining who he is here. Just an ordinary white man, 28 years old, born in Australia to a working, low-class, low-income family. No one cares. My parents are Scottish. Okay. Regular childhood. I had little interest in education during my schooling. Barely achieving a passing grade. Really? Big surprise there. Well, I did not attend university. Again, no surprise. As I had no great interest in anything offered in the universities to study.
Of course, because you're levitating above all of us.
Here, look at this. Mort will have a kick out of this. I worked for a short time before making some money investing in BitConnect. BitConnect, for anyone who knows Bitcoin, it was a big scam that was run. It was like what was it? Well, one of those pyramid schemes that a lot of people got caught in, and a lot of the people who got into BitConnect early, they made a lot of money, and the people who came in late lost everything.
Yeah.
So he worked for essentially he made some money scamming people, and then used the money for investing into travel. More recently, I have been working part-time as a kebab removalist. I don't know what that means.
He's talking about Muslims, I think.
Okay. Well,
they call them kebabs.
Okay.
By the way, while you're saying this, mashallah fa tabarakallah, Mort last night read 72 pages of the manifesto that they're talking about. Mort, heavyweight, brother.
Why did you carry out the attack? Well, to most of all, show the invaders that our lands will never be their lands. Our homelands are our own, and that as long as a white man still lives, they will never conquer our lands, and they will never replace our people. To take revenge on the invaders for the hundreds of thousands of deaths caused by foreign invaders in European lands throughout history.
When I read this, it was so difficult to take him seriously. I was like, man.
So, I mean, clearly he's unhinged. I mean, Muslims are hardly, a fraction, maybe 1 to 5% of countries around, or at least European and Western countries, at least, right? So he clearly wants someone to blame for whatever pathetic situation he's in. He didn't want to go to school, and he's formed a worldview around. He's found a purpose in life, right? He's thinking that he's protecting the white man from foreign invaders.
Yeah. Somebody didn't like that I said this, and I said, you know what? A lot of people are not going to like when I say this because we're just so built on hating people like this, but dude, at the end, not in a sympathetic way that is justified, but dude, I feel bad for people like that, man.
They're morons. I mean, they're people who are very simple-minded people.
But it's not about simple-minded, dude. Look, a human being is a very precious thing, man.
Yeah.
Like every time I try to think of a human being that I'm about to start disliking, or I don't like to, I just think of a baby that, hey, this person was a baby. I know it's weird.
Yeah.
But that's what I do, right? And I think of them as children. I'm like, you know what, whatever. He's still a baby,
You're thinking about how the world failed him.
I'm not only how the world, he was a product of his environment. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
That's the type of failure he is. But again, I don't want people to misinterpret what I'm saying. But again, he's a human being, right?
Yeah.
And I feel bad that a human being had to go down that direction. I'm not just, obviously, I'm not justifying what he did. And it's an atrocious crime what he did. But at the end, dude, he's still one of us. He's a human being, right?
Yeah.
He's from our species. And it's so sad to see such a precious thing that has this mind and brain that's so full of potential just destroyed like this.
Yeah.
And carry out such a shooting. But, I'm going to say this. I don't know. How much more time we got?
We got however much time you want.
Yeah, man. I mean,
is there any questions that we didn't talk about or anything that...
I don't know, man. But mashallah, the mailman, Mort, and Nexus, Motions, Waqar Ali are holding this chat down, though. Shout out to all you guys, man.
Yeah.
Mashallah. Mort always holds it down, man. You can always depend on him for that. But listen, what I'm about to say right now.
Yeah. Please.
I'm going to be serious. And again, please don't take offense. I'm laughing and joking. A lot of people, even when I was discussing this, man, why are you laughing and joking? I was like, man, listen, nothing happens with the permission of Allah.
And everyone copes with things differently,
yeah,
you know, and sometimes you have to just.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not disrespect towards any of the victims and their families, but listen, man, Allah owns us, man, and He can do with us whatever He pleases, and that's His business. But still, we do lots of dua for the victims and their families. Look, my mind kept on going in this direction. Again, this is not the questioning or the belief of the people of Mad Mamluks, you know, or any of our listeners or anyone that's involved directly or indirectly. My personal belief and the way I think is this: what's the best way to avoid something like this happening? Whether it's Syria, whether it's Palestine, why is it so easy for people to bully and mass murder the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Why is it so easy? Why? And everyone all around the world, everything Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying is coming true, and it is, and it's going to be. But why do people have such an easy time doing this to Muslims? Someone that says La ilaha illallah, they have the most valuable thing, more valuable than anything in this world and what it contains, in their chests, in their heart, in their limbs that manifest the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how is something so valuable so easily disposable? So the only thing that comes to my mind, you know, and you guys can agree or disagree, love me or hate me, it's all good. I still love all of you for the sake of Allah, whether you're a Muslim or not. There's no individual or a group of individuals that have such a stance that people are afraid to mess with Muslims. When I was growing up, people wouldn't mess with me because of my older brother. People wouldn't mess with you because you had this connection, right? Where is that big brother for the believers? Some of you may disagree, I don't care, but I think that's where the problem lies, right? Is that the Muslims don't have a shepherd that's responsible for the flock. And as long as we don't have a shepherd that's responsible for the flock, this is going to continue happening to Muslims. Nobody, look, I was telling my students today, and I said this in front of my students. I said, listen, I know this is none of your opinion. This is my opinion. I said to my students, I said, even Indonesia, no matter how weak it may be militarily, at least if it stepped up and said, anybody who messes with my Muslim brothers, we're going to make sure there's severe consequences.
Yeah.
At least people on the international arena would be like, whoa, yeah, they're weak, but at least that's there. You guys ever seen a small, like a David and Goliath situation, where even though it's a David compared to the world, which is the Goliath, it still puts hesitation and haraj in people's hearts, right? And then you have the king of Saudi Arabia, the prince, saying, oh, what's happening to the Muslims in China, if they're trying to take care of terrorism, let them do it, and we're going to support them with it. Like, is that really your role as a shepherd? Is that really what you're there for? If you're, you know, that's my thing. That people, and this is just the way the world works, the one who has a bigger military and muscle and arms, that's who people are afraid of. The individual that's able to mobilize their military is going to be afraid of that power, and they're going to be afraid of what you're interested in. Your interest is, sorry, just give me 1 second, are the believers. So if Saudi was to say, whatever Muslim country was to say, and they're not going to do it, and they didn't, we've given up hope in them, right? And it doesn't mean we have bad reaction to this and we start acting crazy. That's not what I'm saying. So listen to me out thoroughly, please. What it means is that all these people were put in responsibility for the sake of protecting the Muslims, and they're not doing so, right?
Right.
It doesn't mean we're going to do anything about it with arms or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. This is a test that Allah has given us. And Allah at times gives us the people over us that are like us. They are
a reflection of us.
They are a reflection of us, and He gives us what we deserve.
Exactly.
Right? But the only thing, man, I watched Kingdom of Heaven with my, you know, the story of Saladin Ayyubi that came out in 2005. I watched it with my Sirah class just as a break. And it was such an amazing, amazing movie. And it made you realize, just a glimpse, and those of you guys watch Ertugrul, you guys already know what I'm talking about. I don't have to elaborate, right? All you Ertugrul junkies, more power to you. I've only watched 3 episodes of season 1. But there's one part at the end that actually made me cry, right? Is when Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, when he goes and he's in the fort, and he's seeing, you know, what's happening. He has that with Bailey, and he has that conversation before. Sorry, let me backtrack. And he says, I'm going to give you safe passage to all Christian lands. My men will escort you, and I'll make sure nothing happens to you. And the man says, when the Crusaders came to Jerusalem, they butchered every Muslim that they saw. And he says, I'm not those men. I'm Salahuddin, right? And then they have a little exchange. And then he walks into the fortress. Yeah. Salahuddin's walking, and some of his men were this is actually historically accurate. Some of his men were kind of overzealous, and they were happy that they finally got Jerusalem back. And they kind of threw the crosses on the ground, and Salahuddin Ayyubi sees that, he picks it up with respect and he puts it in a rightful place, right? And there's a cross that's on the ground. He sees it, he walks around it out of respect, which lets you know that the criterion for a just person like Umar radiallahu anh, like Abu Bakr, like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is not a person that's supposed to instill fear. That's not what a true leader does, even though people have enmity towards the Muslims and did towards the Muslims. But rather, a Muslim is, and this is my word to any person, whether you're a Muslim or not a non-Muslim, the believer is as such that whatever happens, and we have an upper hand in a Muslim country, and there's Christians there, no matter what happens, we will never take revenge on you. Yeah, that's the believer, right? Especially even if you were to say La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah out of protection, right? If someone's at war, it's prohibited for a Muslim to attack that person after that, even if they're faking it. Yeah, right? And they can use that. More power to them. It's their freedom to use that as a shield, even as a lie, right? So Muslims are not those people that are going to get revenge. And if the Palestinians, right, were to have power, right, in Israel, I guarantee you Muslims as leadership will not take revenge on the Israelis and the Zionists of what they did to the Muslims. That's my promise. I'm so confident in the believers, because the believer is still loving, right? Yeah. And the Palestinians are still abiding by
just like the empathy you were trying to understand the humanity in that this attacker. Excuse me. This is a cough I got, by the way, from Mahin. He left some contagions here a week ago or so. Was it Sunday?
I think we blame Mahin for too much, man.
No, remember he was coughing, hacking his brains out. Yeah. In that one episode, I can't remember, but this is his contagions.
But can I just finish something before I forget? Is that just because that doesn't mean us as believers we're going to take matters into our own hand, because it's only authority has the right to do that. So take that discomfort or anger that you have and don't do anything brash. Don't I hate to use the word terrorize, but don't inflict or be antagonist towards people. Utilize that anger that you have and use it for your iman and use it for bettering people around you, right? And again, this is my firm belief and this is my belief. And if you guys want, you guys can chime in on the comments. But none of this is going to change until we have an entity that has an army that can mobilize. They don't have to use the army. But the benefits of having a strong army is that people don't mess with you.
You're saying a political actor that has the Muslims' interests at heart.
It's exactly Muslims' interests at heart, and the non-Muslims' interests at heart. Yes. We don't want non-Muslims to be uncomfortable.
Of course.
We want them to be safe. We want them, man, if my neighbor, anything happens to them, I have to die, as a Muslim, I have to die for them, right?
Of course.
And if I die protecting him in Islam, I'm a shaheed, right? And same thing with somebody who's the actor, as you're saying, for the interests of the Muslims. He has to be able to have that same love for whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim. That doesn't matter, right?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let me show you.
But I just want to get that in, that we shouldn't become overzealous and give up. No one's going to help us until we take some violent action. We're not asking that either, and that's obviously haram too.
No, and what you're saying is something very reasonable. Don't be an agitator online. I know some brothers are very upset. We talked about the stages of grief, and where some people are dealing with the stage of anger in a completely unproductive way, at least on Twitter, from what I've seen, where this is kind of going after anyone that looks like a target that is resembling this person, that, hey, you're the one who caused this, people like you. Well, calm down a little bit, and it's, yes, of course, there are people who have hate in their heart, but from hate and murder, there is a big leap, okay? We shouldn't. We should always condemn hate. I'm not saying, but accusing someone of conspiring or murder is something different. So, you don't want to be an agitator. You want to be a healer, okay? And that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to get I hope people don't misconstrue what I'm saying and thinking that, I think the far right are good people or anything. No, I think they're very deplorable people, and they are hateful people. They are preachers of hate, okay? I'm not denying that at all. What I'm saying is show the goodness of your Islam to them, so that they don't need more reason to hate you. You know what I'm saying? So, how do you think you'll change their heart? I mean, if you try to get them banned, they're just gonna go underground, right? They'll go underground to websites such as these, 8chan or whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you the website where he declared that he's going to start going on his rampage. Well, there's a lot of expletives over here, so I'm just gonna show it briefly, but. He basically announces that he's going to go ahead and attack on this channel. It's about to be posting and time to go make a real effort. So this was posted on 8chan, and before, you don't think the government could have seen that? Any governmental agencies could have alerted? They can't trace back IP addresses. We're in IT, man. You can't. People, everything can be traced back.
Yeah.
Especially like when there's a website that is operating in creating language that can harm people, violence. These governments it's completely within their power to do something about it, and that the fact that they did not was that they either deliberately were looking the other way and they didn't want to have anything to do with this, or they didn't take the threat seriously, or and I think what we could do, at least as a takeaway from this, is perhaps if there are any politicians in your district or whatever, tell them, like, you need to start monitoring some of these websites and tell them that there's got to be some kind of proactive monitoring of some of these hate websites so that people can be alerted to what's happening.
And it's doable. It's not impossible, dude. It's happening all the time.
The thing is, when money is at play, they're going to make sure when Hillary Clinton or these documents related to the election scandal, things like that are being discussed by hackers, you bet your butt that the FBI will know about it, and they're going to make sure that they intercept it before it gets leaked to the public, right? So don't tell me that this can't be monitored and that some kind of warning could have been given to people in advance.
Yeah. So I just read in the comments, there people are saying, well, Muslims have an issue with romanticizing the past, and even during the caliphs there was violence and there wasn't peace. We're not saying that there wasn't. I'm talking about an entity, and someone says what you're talking about is a khilafah. Dude, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it khilafah, you can call it a Muslim government, you can call it, like you said, an actor who's vested in the interests of the Muslims. Dude, there was violence at the time. There were hypocrites amongst Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Like, what are we trying to say? Yeah. All I'm saying is the best way internationally to have power is to have an entity that protects you. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. You don't have to jump the gun and try to change the subject because you want to tarnish what happened in Muslim, or tarnish Muslim history, right? Yeah. If you're trying to talk bad about Muslim history, dude, you can talk about Muslim history as much as you want, but it doesn't change the fact that Allah is one, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his final messenger. None of that matters. Humans are always going to be humans. It's a part of the human experience many times not to have peace, but that doesn't mean that the people who have power and the people who can mobilize armies, it doesn't exempt them from a responsibility. Right. That's all I'm saying. Right? You can call it whatever you like. I don't care about semantics and words. I'm concerned about the action that takes place, right? So whatever entity you are, if that makes you happy, I'll say that. Whatever entity you are, you have a responsibility. The more power you have, the more of a servant you are to humanity. And if you have the guts, step up to the plate and say, no one's going to mess with my Muslim brothers and sisters anymore. We love everybody. We want everyone to live happy and peace. We want everyone to worship whatever they want. But nobody's going to mess with my brothers. Is that more clear? right? So
I couldn't have said it better myself.
that's all I'm saying, brothers and sisters. I still love everybody, man.
All right, I know you do, man. You're a very loving dude.
I know. I can't take it anymore.
Who got you all riled up? Let me talk to him.
Nobody, man. It's Mort, dude. Let's blame Mort, dude.
Is that Mort?
No, it's not Mort, but
all right. Well, let's wrap this baby up. I think we've outlived our usefulness for this evening.
Yep. Don't be afraid, brothers and sisters. Just let it raise your iman.
Yeah.
Look at the signs around you. Allah's always trying to raise our iman. We just have to open our eyes. That's all it is. Allah wants us just to, find Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and get into Jannah. That's it, brothers and sisters.
Think deeply, guys. That's all. That's all I ask. I'm no one here to give you advice, but at least that's what I've been doing today as a day of mourning, as a day of. So it was just a day of reflection for me, just thinking about family. I just spent hours sitting on the couch with my cat in my lap and just looking at a wall and just thinking about what I'm doing. And
dude, that's a good thing. We need to think like that, man. We need to quarantine ourselves and think, man.
No podcasts we're playing. No.
Shut off your
TV,
phones and just think, man. Yep.
No
just
social
be human,
media.
Man. Just be human.
Think
Listen to your
about
thoughts.
what your role is in the world and how you're going to make the world a better place. So forget about everything. What can you do? What's within your sphere of control? Maybe you can't change the world, but maybe you can change your family, and maybe you can influence them, and maybe your progeny, your children grow, and they raise leaders. They grow and they have, they climb to positions of power and authority, and they're able to make change in the world and make the world a better place. So think about it from that end. Think about what your areas of control are, where you could grow, what your limitations are. Be honest with yourself and do some reflecting. And that's it. That's all I got for you today. And I thank you so much for joining us. I hope it was beneficial for you as much as it was for me. And again, if you feel differently, let us know in the comments below. Give our this video a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already. And help us out on Patreon.com. And I don't have my Patreon. Oh, yeah, I do. Okay, there it is.
Bam.
Patreon.com/The Mandolin Lukes. All right, for my co-host, Shaykh Amir Saeed, my name is Sim. We'll see you all on the flip side. Assalamu alaikum.